Welcome to Healing from the Ground Up. I'm Leslie Gray, your host, and my guest today is Fred Jack Miles. Fred is an Ojibwe shaman and medicine man. I have had the very fortunate opportunity of actually seeing Fred work and see him do healings. In addition, Fred is a member of one of the most famous American Indian healing societies, the Mede-Wewin, and sometimes called the Mede, and perhaps he'll be able to speak a bit about that today. I'd like to go right into, however, his experience with healing from the worldview of his tribe, which is a matriarchal and feminine worldview, as is its lore. And that's unique. Not unique in the Americas, but unique in many of the other indigenous traditions of the Eastern Hemisphere. So welcome, Fred. It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
And I'd like to hear a little bit about your thoughts about healing from the ground up.
Okay, in our culture, illness is actually caused by spirit. Your guardian spirit, which you carry from birth. And the guardian goes off and leaves now and then, which leaves you vulnerable for illnesses. Now, in the past, our people only had to worry about illnesses, from molds and from eating wrong plants or whatever. But what we're faced with nowadays are chemicals that are introduced into our food, gases that are introduced by various materials like plastic, and disasters like plutonium leaks. So that puts a lot of complication into it because we have a hard time dealing with that. Because
so you had a formulation for how you dealt with illnesses previously, a frame on how you saw that. How on earth have you, as a medicine person, been able to frame these new sorts of sources of illness?
Well, there again, I just figured that in my case that a person's guardian is still left, which left them vulnerable to intake these chemicals. And my job is to bring the spirit back.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if there was an invasion of a spirit, to drive it away. After all, we get invasions that are like bacteria, viruses, and spirits.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a matter of getting them out of the person's body.
Removing the intrusion.
Removing the intrusion.
And then returning the guardian spirit?
Returning the guardian spirit. And the best way for me is to contact the guardian spirit so that I can enlist his help in helping remove the spirit within a person. And hopefully getting the person to themselves help in their own healing. Now, the really disadvantage of this, which our tribe had an answer to it, our tribe, the only people that become medicine shamans, or in our case, Jessikiwan or Jessikiwan Winini, was through centuries and centuries of the same clan, through your grandmothers, your great-grandmothers, your mother, not through your father.
Hmm.
And each clan had an occupation. So you had to be born of a clan to go into the Mede-Wewin, except for one group that didn't have to be born into the clan. Those were the gay people, because they were considered specially gifted.
Mm-hmm.
both the men and the women. Our tribe set up, we had women in charge. They were the president, the vice president, the Congress, because that was our government. Everything run by the women, which makes sense because they stayed at the village, where the men were either out hunting or at war. And besides that, men are a little different than like deer. A buck, once in a while, goes into what we call rutting. He goes insane, and he attacks other bucks to try to gain control of the entire herd. Okay, the problem with men is all year, all 365 days or 366 days are rutting season. So men have this insanity all the time of trying to gain and keep power. And of course, take it away from women.
And so how did the tribe handle this so that there could still be balance?
The men were sent out and the women ruled.
I see. And women carried this power. They were vessels in what way? What enabled them to be the vessels?
When a woman is born with eggs, each egg has a spirit. Women don't have to go on spirit quests, not like I see on bulletin boards, that they advertise women's spirit quests, but a man has to, because he's only born with the one spirit. And sometimes one spirit's not enough. So a man has to go on spirit quests in order to gain any more spirits.
Unless you are gay or homosexual, in which case you are a two-spirited person.
Yes.
And then you are extraordinary in that you can play both roles and particularly can be gifted as a healer.
It's like with males, there's two types of gay males. There's a very masculine type and a very feminine type. In our culture, the feminine gay person gained the rights of a woman. He could be in the government. He had all the rights of a woman. Whereas the masculine gay person was still a warrior, still a hunter, and of course, gay people could marry each other. It doesn't mean that it was important that a feminine gay man marry a masculine man. It didn't matter, because our tribe doesn't matter who you marry. And that's the same with women. You have a very masculine woman and a very feminine woman. The masculine woman lost her rights as a woman and became a warrior of equal status to the men warriors. And the feminine woman kept her status as a governing member of the tribe.
What I see in this is, even though it's culture specific, there is still this theme of working out a balanced way so that everybody has a role in making sure that the people may live.
Yes. Because what I dislike about this culture that we're in now, which is, thank God, getting better, is the fact that we've recognized gay people as being very valuable for the tribe. Now they mess with them from the time they're children and make them psychological wrecks and tell them that they're ill. And they need to go to prayer sessions so they can get cured of this infliction, which is not an infliction at all. And it's not even decided by them, it's decided by Nokomis.
Tell me about Nokomis.
Okay, Nokomis, actually we met with the Egyptians thousands of years ago. And Nokomis in Egypt, they took our Nokomis and changed her name to Isis. She became Isis after they met with our people.
And the role of Nokomis in healing is?
She is our creator.
Ah, yes.
Great Spirit really had nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm. So when you're working as a medicine person and you have that background of how things came to be, how does that influence what you work at, how you work with people?
I have to gain female sensitivity.
Huh.
Men don't really have that much sensitivity.
Uh-huh.
They're the cold half of the species,
Uh-huh.
as is apparent.
Mm-hmm.
I have to learn and accept the fact that femininity is a gift.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very strong gift and a very respectable gift, especially in our people.
Is the process of learning that for a medicine person hard?
Yes, it is.
Uh-huh.
And it's, unfortunately, it's not something that you can ignore.
Uh-huh.
You can't decide, oh, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to do that stuff.
It's hard, but you're called or
You're
impelled?
called, and if you ignore it, terrible things happen to you. And Nokomis lets you know that she chose you. You don't say no to a goddess. Just like you don't say no to any woman.
I think you added that last part on there. I understand about not saying.
Well, you might beat me up. I don't know.
So I want to ask you something. As long as I've known you, I've also wondered. I've seen you do extraordinary things. I've seen you do dangerous things, like being a sucking doctor and sucking out the disease from very ill people. I'm wondering, what is it of all of this? What in the various healing modalities that you do so well, is there some part of it that you enjoy or that really feels right to you? Like you suddenly know why you do this calling when you do it?
The end. The reaction from the person I was working on. The work itself is no fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
The preparation is no fun.
Yeah. And I've seen that, by the way. I've seen you have to fast and all this stuff, and you were almost ill yourself by the time the healing happened from all the preparation.
Mm-hmm. I don't see anything fun about that.
Yeah.
But I'm going to a fight.
Uh-huh.
I was in the Army in Vietnam. I know about fighting.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going to do battle.
Against the illness.
Against the illness.
Uh-huh. But with yourself as the instrument, your spirit as the instrument.
The weapon.
Uh-huh.
And of course, when I was in Vietnam, I got sick a few times.
Uh-huh.
And it plays on your nerves, something fierce.
Uh-huh.
If you ever ask a soldier if he's ever been scared and he says no, you know he wasn't a soldier.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, what we're talking about right now rarely gets talked about in the Western neo-shamanic movement. There's a great deal of talk about the spiritual experience, feelings of holism, but I don't see a lot about how very, very difficult it is and how taxing it is on the healer. Although, when you read the stories of great shamans of the past, they went through incredibly arduous trainings, even to the point of torture and suffering, in order to be able to heal. But somehow that part doesn't get talked about very much.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're really a Native American and you grew up with it, you just have no idea why anybody would want to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And of course, I'm not from here. I'm from northern Michigan. They come here and they talk with strange languages like consciousness and stuff. And I have no clue what that means. They start talking to me with their language. And I don't know what they're saying, you know. But I sometimes wonder if that's all part of the act, or whether they even know what they're getting into, or whether they're even able to get it into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is hard. This is hard for a lot of people to hear, because people are going to school to be shamans and taking workshops to be shamans, and yet the native people I know would avoid any circumstance that might possibly lead to being a shaman a lot of the time. You know, I've even heard stories, especially in the plains where the training is so arduous, or you might be told in a vision that you have to be a heyoka and do everything backwards for the rest of your life, which is horrifying. I've heard of people taking their own lives rather than go on to having to do that.
Actually, if I was one of those heyokas, I would be moving exactly the way I move now.
I know that.
Because I'd be doing opposite of backwards. It's like in physics, nothing, the term nothing does not exist. There's always something, whether it's black, it's still something. But opposite of opposite is forward. So since you're supposed to do everything backwards, you'd be doing the backwards part backwards.
I guess there's a lot of heyokas who would have liked to have thought of that before they went through the awful experiences that they had to go to. Although, you know, and this is also something about shamans that's, you know, at least I don't see in the neo-shamanic movement, which is often you either have to spend a year of your life dressing like a woman if you're a man, or dressing like a man if you're a woman, and living the other way so that you will know both sides and be able. But that's a sort of sacrifice I think a lot of people in the modern world are not about to make.
Yeah, we didn't have to do that, fortunately for me. Although my initiation to the Medieval Women's Society was anything more than pleasant. Number one, I wasn't used to being naked in public, and they had to prepare me for the ceremony, which meant took my clothes off and else, and I'm embarrassed as all heck. And they tie you to a pole, do the ceremony, knock you out with a war club, and then bring you back with powder from an otter bag, which is really just, it's kind of a baptism, I guess. And it's not actually bringing you back. You kind of finally get out of the conscious state that they put you into, and later get some ice put on your head.
and hope you survive the impairment.
Yes.
You know, I wanted to ask you something. This has been on my mind for a while. When you do when you suck the disease out of something, out of someone, which I've seen you do, how are you? What are the rituals that you do to keep it from going into you?
Well, that's all in the preparation. I go around asking plants if I can use their spirit. Everything that's alive has a spirit. I'm not taking their spirit, I'm borrowing it. It's going to go back to the plant when I'm done with it. And I get as much plants as I can. It helps to first look into the person without invasion to see what you're up against. Then you get as many spirits as you want without being too greedy. You only need as much as you need. I mean, you only put so much salt on your potatoes. And then you meditate to combine all the spirits together. And then, I get a bowl of water, because that's where I'm going to put the enemy. and I put plants in the water to contain it or drive it away. Then I put plants in my mouth. I don't want what I'm sucking out to go any further than my mouth. Mm-hmm. And then I actually I put the tube to my mouth and send my spirit through the tube into the person's body, along with the spirits I've collected to attack. And hopefully I'll see the person's guardian helping me. Mm. And we drive out the illnesses. Mm. A lot of times the illnesses take the shape of insects, but you don't know what you're going to see. Then you extract it. It's nerve-wracking as all heck. So,
I've seen you do this. This is the first time I've ever asked you what, your internal preparation and internal experience of it was. But I've certainly seen you suck the tumors out of someone. I think I just got an inkling of why there's so much retching going on when you do it, and you look quite almost ill yourself when you're doing it, and then spitting it into the water. And I've seen the blood come out of the person when you were sucking. But even more than that, I've seen that little extra element where the whole is more than the sum of its parts, which was when you were a guest in my class at Berkeley and you did one of these suckings, and we had the lights dimmed, and then when the lights were raised, the students were asking, they had a chance to ask you, what was it that you saw in the patient's body? What were you sucking out? And you said it had been black spiders. And there was some discussion of that, and then the class was over and we turned the lights up fully, and on the floor were these little black spiders running everywhere. And the Berkeley students, who are some of the most disbelieving and cynical students I've ever worked with, all of a sudden jumped up on chairs, jumped in the windowsills, and were yelling, "It's magic, it's magic." And you and I remember we were standing next to each other, we looked at each other and we said, what a coincidence.
Exactly. I wish I was a little bit more awake at that time to see it. Because I didn't see them jumping up on the chairs and stuff.
Oh, they were. They were jumping in the windowsill, running out the front door, and jumping on chairs.
That would have been fun to see.
Yeah, it was also fun to hear these hard-nosed Berkeley students yell, "It's magic, it's magic," because I realized you and I don't believe in magic. You were doing hard work.
Yeah. Well, I believe in magic. My dad was a magician. He used to do a lot of different...
Well, magic as magic,
but
not the way they meant it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And how long have you been doing this now?
Since 1985.
1985. Yeah.
That's the year I was initiated.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. And I was taught by an elder named Little Elk. Mm-hmm. And he also gave me the name Ghost of a Wolf. Mm-hmm. Which is cute because Ghost of a Wolf had nothing to do with anything magic. Mm-hmm. It's because I walk too quiet.
Too quiet.
Yeah, he had me put bells on my shoes so he could hear me coming, because he'd be walking, I'd walk up kind of behind him, he'd turn around and jump.
I do want a chance to ask you, because you preserve these things so well and you do them so powerfully, where do you see the future of this going? Because everywhere around me, I see the failure of Western medicine. And yet I don't necessarily see an immediate way that the healing aspect of Native American medicine can be combined with the technological aspects that Western medicine is pretty much reducing itself to. Well, what do you see? How do you see it?
Okay. Now, actually, when I drive the spirits out of a person, let's say they're in an auto accident. Okay, I restore their spirit. I prevent them from going into any further accidents. But somebody still has to fix the, you still got to call a carpenter in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The designer's done his work, now he brings the carpenter in to fix things.
Mm-hmm. Set a bone or something.
Yeah, because the way I feel about Western medicine, you know, their heart's in the right place. But if you knew what each individual doctor knew, in spite of all the knowledge of the American Medical Association, you wouldn't sleep at night. And what the doctors tend to try to do, they don't try to cure the person or heal the person. What they're interested in is getting rid of the pain. And work on the pain aspect of it. So after a few days in the hospital, the patient goes home, still with the illness. But for things like setting bones or having to go and do surgery and repair something, they're very good at it. Especially heart diseases. They're really good at repairing hearts.
Mm-hmm.
So I do not have a hatred towards the American Medical Association or towards doctors. I just wish they could be able to expand it like our tribes did. We did have two types of doctors, the HFGU and the Madao. The HFGU were the spirit healers.
Mm-hmm.
The Madao were the physical, put everything back together again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So no, I have nothing against Western medicine.
But what you want is to see the balance. Well, I'm really hoping that, you know, that's one of the reasons I've had you in my classes is I want the students to be able to be exposed to this combination, that healing needs to be part of getting better medically, or you'll end up the way we are right now, which is this vast amount of chronicities that people can't get better from.
Right.
Yeah. So do you, when you work, do you call upon your guardian spirit to help you?
What I once learned a long time ago is if you're going to have a Broadway show, don't put your own money in it.
Okay.
That's an old saying.
Yeah.
My guardian spirit is to protect me,
Uh-huh.
not to work on somebody else.
So that's why you call up their guardian spirit for help, is that it?
And ask for any volunteers from the plants.
Right. Right. Well, that is a model that I understand why it would be so effective, because you're not taking it all on yourself and you're protecting yourself and you're calling on everything and not just relying on your own power. And I would imagine that goes a long way toward preventing burning out on a very, very difficult line of work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyway, it's just been delightful having you here, and thank you so much, Fred, for being willing to talk about this.
Oh, you're welcome, Leslie.
Okay.
I hope the viewers all listen to what I say and learn from it.
Yeah, me too. Well, this has been Healing from the Ground Up. I'm Leslie Gray. My guest has been Fred Jack Miles, Ojibwe shaman. Hope to see you soon.